Good morning. Welcome to Core Services and our Core Belief Series, Why It Matters. Today we're going to be discussing conflicts of interest and some of the steps that HOA and condo boards can put in place to reduce the risk of a conflict of interest and its impact. I'm John Caldwell and I am today's presenter. A little bit about Core Services. Core focuses on audit and review services, primarily with condos and HOAs in Oregon and Washington. We have over 40 years of combined experience working with associations and also performing audits and review services for commercial business as well. We also offer advisory services to boards. We do board meeting observation, and this time of year we're assisting quite a few with budget preparation as well as reserve analysis and really thinking about how their associations can fund reserve projects that are coming up. So a little bit about condo and HOA boards as we begin. First thing to understand is it's a volunteer organization, typically anywhere between 4 and 8 to 10 hours a month, maybe, depending upon time of the year. Typical size is we've seen as small as 3, we've seen as large as 11 in some cases, but the average is between 5 and 7 for the average board size. And something to understand is in most instances, owners vote for the board, and the board determines which director sits in which officer's position. So if you have a chair, you have a secretary and a treasurer's position, the board itself votes to see who sits in those positions. So the board has 2 primary responsibilities. They provide oversight, so they basically make sure that management's doing the job that they've been hired to do, which basically is done through the passing of a budget, hiring and an evaluation of management, and then obviously evaluating the finances on an interim basis to make sure that spending is in control and in line with the budget. And then they also do review and approve of contracts. And today, this is pretty much where we're going to focus our time is on contract review and approval, and what to look for to make sure that there is no conflict of interest. So one thing you really want to look at is obviously there's 2 contracts that I think a board needs to be aware of. There's the contract for auditors, which we've covered before and we'll cover again, but that's strictly a board function. The management should not be involved in the selection of an auditor. That's because independence is a huge part of what you're hiring an auditor for. So you as the board want to only be involved in the engagement and evaluation of your auditor. But other than that, what you want to do is provide the specifications to your manager over what you want, say, for a contract performance. So if you're looking for a landscaper, you want to be very clear what you want from your landscaper so that you can give this information to the manager so they can go out and get the proposals for you. Your instructions should be very clear. You expect at least 3 qualified proposals from providers, and again, what we'll cover here in a little bit is you want to make sure that whoever is providing the proposal is free of a conflict of interest with you. Have management review those proposals and then provide a summary. So you should not have to spend time reading through their contract proposal. That's management's job. What you want is a simple checklist that says, here's what they're going to do for us, here's what they're going to charge, and more importantly, here's what their add-ons are, their additionals, and here's what we're going to get charged for those additionals if and when they should pop up. And then what you want to do is vote on the most responsive proposal. And most responsive really isn't always the lowest contract price. It is in fact the contract price that is in the contractor who's most in line with your expectations. So don't always jump to the whole concept of I've got to choose the lowest bidder. Not necessarily. And then what we're going to talk about now is what are some of the risks that are involved with a contract. So obviously a risk is that a manager is going to take a kickback from the contractor. A board member receives free services. And then finally, someone in this chain of the board or management has an interest in that provider. So how do we reduce those risks? Well, one way is to make sure in your management contract you perhaps consider putting an anti-kickback language in the management contract. You basically want to tell your manager that while you appreciate the service they're providing, their compensation comes from you. They're not going to get compensated through having their contractors give them money to either bid on a project or work on the project. That actually increases the cost to your association, because the provider is not going to eat that additional cost. So they're going to pad it into your quote. Make sure everyone signs an agreement, either the board and management, when there is involvement. So if a board member happens to own the provider, then they need to state so, and they need to abstain or recuse themselves from that vote when the time comes. And they should look at it a little bit more broadly than just if they own it. They should look to see if their kids or stepkids or a son or daughter-in-law own that business. Take an expansive view on, look, if somebody looks at this, does it look like I'm potentially trying to feed business to my family? And then don't participate in that vote. The board should sign a conflict of interest agreement. And you want to be very clear on what your board is considering a conflict of interest. So you want to identify situations. I said owning a business, taking free services. Those things all basically encourage you to take a step that you would potentially not otherwise take. And it's a voluntary reporting. So if a board member says, hey, look, I have a conflict of interest with this person, then that's fine. The important thing is they discuss it and, agree to not vote when the time comes. And managers should also identify these conflicts as well. It is not their money, it is yours. So you want to make the best decision possible. But if management is basically, again, taking that marketing fee for the contractor and then saying this is the contractor you should go with, it looks to me like a conflict, and I think they need to address that with you and be very clear up front. This is how we make additional money. The important thing is, why it matters. You as a board are required to act as a fiduciary, which means that you're held to a reasonable standard. If it looks like it's wrong, it probably is, so you want to make sure you address it. You've agreed to serve on this board without compensation. So if you get free services from a provider, it is in fact a compensatory act. You've violated your agreement to serve on the board. So in all cases, act as a fiduciary, because at the end of the day, the money belongs to you and your neighbors, not just you. So you want to get the best deal. So don't go into this thing in hopes that you're going to be able to bleed the association dry. It's not fair to your neighbors. It creates all sorts of problems in the future that you would probably be happier not having crop up when the time comes. So always focus on, making sure that you have no conflicts of interest with your providers, that your management has either identified the fact that they are in conflict or potentially have a conflict of interest, and that they've addressed it to you. And again, if they might be the very best provider out there of that service, you can choose them if you want. Like I said, to me, it's the important thing is they've disclosed it so that you can make a more effective decision as a board. So anyway, I hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us. You can go to our website, core-acct.com. Feel free to send us any questions you have. We'd love to be able to answer them. We typically don't charge for answering questions when it comes to this. We charge money for providing audit services. You can also contact us on Twitter, and you can also find Doug and me on LinkedIn. So anyway, hope you have a great day, and we look forward to our next presentation.